Perfect. Welcome everyone to the Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee for April 3rd. I would like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting, interrupting councillor, staff, or other delegations. Derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, hate speech, or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations, please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. So also, this is a formal public meeting to consider applications under the Planning Act. If a person or public body does not make oral or written submissions to the City of Kitchener before the proposed applications are considered, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to a hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 6.1, which is the official plan amendment. Application OPA 2020/051/C/KA zoning bylaw amendment for 265 Cotton Grass Street, and this is for Schlegel Urban Developments. First, we have a presentation from Katie. Katie, you have 5 minutes, so when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm pleased to be here this evening to give you a brief overview of the proposed development applications at 265 Cotton Grass Street. So the subject lands are located in the Williamsburg Town Centre. They are currently vacant commercial lands. They were originally planned as part of this plan of subdivision nearly 20 years ago. They're at the corner of Cotton Grass Street and private Main Street, which functions as the internal corridor and commercial spine of the Williamsburg Town Centre. It's also adjacent to Max Becker Common, which is a public park that was dedicated through the plan of subdivision. Schlegel Urban Developments is proposing an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to permit those lands that are commercial right now to be used for a standalone multiple dwelling. Right now, the zoning and designation only permit dwelling units on upper stories of mixed use or commercial buildings, and so the developer is proposing to have 100% residential in the building. You can see that the surrounding neighborhood contains a mix of residential uses, both low-rise and medium-rise residential. The commercial plaza has been developed with a number of commercial sites and uses, many of which front onto Main Street. There's a large Sobeys grocery store as well as a bank, and a number of other smaller commercial restaurant uses in the vicinity, as well as parks and institutional uses. So as I mentioned, right now the lands are designated commercial. They're located in a community node, and a mix of residential, commercial, institutional uses are permitted on the subject lands. They're currently zoned neighborhood shopping center zone with a special regulation that limits the size of a commercial outlet. So the applicant's proposing to amend the official plan to add a specific policy area that would allow a standalone residential building with ground floor commercial or residential units, as well as an amendment to the zoning bylaw to specifically permit multiple dwelling, to add a special use provision that would create a minimum lot area of 3,400 square meters. That's slightly smaller than the current permitted lot area of 4,000 square meters. Right now it's one large parcel. However, it's anticipated that the commercial lands would become part of a commercial condominium, and this would become a remnant parcel. And so it would be a slightly smaller than a commercial parcel. Permission to have dwelling units again on the ground floor, to permit some reduced setbacks to Cotton Grass Street, to permit a parking rate of 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, and that would be inclusive of visitor parking, and visitor parking would be 15%. In addition to that, we would also require Class A, so weather-protected secure bike parking at a rate of 0.5 spaces per unit, as well as having a minimum of 20% of the parking designed to be EV ready. So that means installing the conduit as at the time the site's being developed. The region of Waterloo has also requested a prohibition on geothermal systems, given the sensitivity of the groundwater in this area, and it's in a source protection area. The region has also requested that we add a holding provision to require the completion of a noise study. And I will let you know that that noise study is well underway. It's under review right now. So it is possible that before the April committee before the council meeting date, we may be able to email a revision to the bylaw that would no longer require that holding provision if it's been fulfilled. Otherwise, because it's a holding provision, once that's done, then we would bring a quick report back to lift that holding provision once the condition's been fulfilled. So this is a rendering provided by the applicant of the proposed 3.5-story back-to-back stacked townhouses. You can see that they've been designed to front onto the private main street, helping to complete that street and provide a unique place within the Williamsburg town center. The architecture complements the existing uses along Main Street, as well as a lot of the condominium buildings that have been built on Commonwealth. This is proposed to be a rental development with 2 and 3 bedroom units, and it's a missing middle type of development. So this application offers an opportunity to increase missing middle housing, provides 32 rental units with a mix of 2 and 3 bedrooms. The design integrates well into the Williamsburg town center, and it increases the range of dwellings in this neighborhood and in close proximity to schools, services, shopping, parks, and transit. So the requested amendments, in staff's opinion, are consistent with policies of the provincial policy statement. They conform to the growth plan in the regional official plan and the City of Kitchener's official plan and represent good planning. Planning staff recommend that the official plan amendment be adopted and the zoning bylaw amendment be approved. And I'm here happy to answer questions at the appropriate time, and this concludes my presentation.
Ms. Andrell, thank you very much. We'll just hold the questions of staff. There's a delegation, and we can come back for questions of staff, and I'll recall that you keyed in first, Councillor Chapman. Alex Vanderloos. Alex, welcome, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't have to say slide, please. All right.
We'll get his clock reset. Yeah. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening, Chair Singh, Mayor Verbanovic, members of committee. My name is Alex Vandersloos. I'm a project manager with Schlegel Urban Developments here in Kitchener. And I'm appearing this evening to, number one, voice our support for our staff's recommendation, but also to share a little bit, some key highlights of the proposal, and to make myself available if committee has any questions. Before I start, I will first pass along regrets from our planning consultant, Chris Pidgeon from GSP Group, who was not able to attend this evening due to a conflict. And I also want to thank staff very much for a productive and collaborative process. I believe that the plan we have today is a real improvement on what we came in with, and that is thanks to the work from staff, so thank you. Oh, this is me. This is a photo of the Williamsburg Town Center. I've shown in yellow the location of the proposal of what we call Building 800, which is hopefully going to be a 32-unit rental housing project, as Katie outlined. In red, I've highlighted the location of Schlegel's future offices. Our current offices are in the bottom left of this photo in a 2-story building. We'll be moving to a new location with drastically expanded floor plate and footprint to house all of our staff right on Main Street and adjacent this project. I've also identified in blue locations for medium-rise residential housing which were approved through the subdivision some 20 years ago, as Katie said. The Williamsburg Town Center has servicing capacity and as-of-right zoning to develop hundreds of rental housing units. This is our first kick at the can, as it were, in the rental housing business at Schlegel. We've started a new business called Schlegel Living, and this will hopefully be our first project here in Williamsburg developing rental housing. This graphic is from a report written in the early 90s by Ron Schlegel, so long ago that these drawings were being hand-drawn at that time. And you may recognize from the previous slide some familiar landmarks. So some things have, I'll say, survived the 30-year period which has passed since this project was first conceived. So the location and size of Max Becker Common, the implementation of a pedestrian-oriented main street, a wide variety of commercial uses and amenities, and a full range of housing are all things which have survived the test of time and are still being implemented by Schlegel today. While the lands awaited development, we have maintained them as mown grass, and the boundary between Max Becker Common, public lands, and our private future development lands has essentially been invisible. And we certainly heard through the consultation with the public and through working with staff that there is some value in formally delineating that boundary, and so we have amended our plans to incorporate that. Over the years, Schlegel has hosted the Williamsburg Community Festival. In 2019, we got to our 15th annual event. Unfortunately, as with so many things, the plans got waylaid with COVID-19, but we are very much looking forward to what the next iteration of the Williamsburg Community Festival looks like, and we hope that there will be even more neighbors to take part and enjoy. So following through on the promise of Williamsburg since its inception, it was planned to be a mixed-use node with a full range of housing, and this proposal will see the construction of 32 missing middle rental units in proximity to transit, adjacent a park, a grocery store, personal, financial, and medical services, restaurants, and many other commercial amenities. The project, as Katie identified, consists entirely of 2- and 3-bedroom units. We have 8 3-bedroom units included in our proposal. And the building will also be highly energy efficient, currently benchmarking at over 40% efficiency relative to the National Building Code. And the project is being financed through CMHC with the MLI Select program. The building has been designed architecturally to fit into the Williamsburg Town Center seamlessly, and you can see here some photos of condos on the west side of Commonwealth Street, which were built by Schlegel in partnership with Reeds in the past. Finally, I wanted to show a rendering of the proposed building in context from the west side of Commonwealth Street. It is a back-to-back stacked townhouse project, and so the building really doesn't have a back side. What is on the front side on Main Street is mirrored completely on the park side on the back of the building because there are units facing outward from one another from a common interior wall. With that, I will end my presentation. Sorry for going over on my time here, and very happy to answer any questions if committee has any. Thank you.
No, it's certainly okay. I don't see any questions. All of a sudden we do now. Councillor Chapman. Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, just a question. I mean, it's great to see, you know, the rentals and the 2- and 3-bedroom units. That's wonderful. I just had a question about affordability. Is that entered your thought process?
Certainly it's entered the thought process. On a project this size, some of the programs which are available, which incentivize affordable housing, they don't work as well. So these will be market units, but we're very happy and very proud to be bringing 32 missing middle rental units to Williamsburg, and the 8 3-bedrooms is a big plus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clancy.
Yeah, I just wanted to see, I think it's beautiful. I think it like complements the space well from the renderings. It's like you said, missing middle. Like there's lots of really great ways in which it contributes to the area. And like every other developer, I just want to challenge you to innovate and see if there's ways you could integrate heat pumps into the project, especially being rental units. You know, so it's more of a comment, I guess, on how you could kind of push beyond a 2015 standard to something forward thinking. Is there any way in which your organization is is looking forward to innovating in terms of sustainability?
Absolutely. So thank you very much for the question. We do have heat pumps, so that's part of what gets us to that 40% benchmark relative to NBC 2015. So the reason I included that metric was that is the metric that CMHC uses, which is the NBC 2015 numbers. Relative to the current OBC, we're about 35% more efficient, and the heat pumps are a big part of that. Heat pump technology has come a long way. We're hearing that these units are effective to -40, where in the past, with the inefficiency of some of the units in the past, you typically had to offset with another system, and the technology is getting to a point now where that's not required so much. This is our first rental housing project, and so we are just kind of getting into gaining confidence and understanding how the rental housing business works and how we get these projects out of the ground. And innovating and being a leader is something that we try to achieve on all of our projects, and going forward, we continue to look at ways to do more of our own volition and continue to be pushed by staff and want to respond in kind.
Thank you.
Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I love Williamsburg. I think it's a wonderful area. I think that Schlegel has done a great job creating such a welcoming community.
Thank you.
There looks like there's still a lot of space there, right? Like I'm seeing green grass.
Max Becker Common?
Sorry?
Like in the park,
In
there's
the
a lot of
area,
space?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not touching the park at all.
Okay, and I know that you used, they're changing this from commercial to residential, which is great, we need that. Is there any more commercial space left there? Although you do have some, but is there any more?
I will admit that we have a bit more commercial development land than we had hoped to have had at this point in the project.
Okay.
Part of what precipitated this application is, I'll say we've kind of crossed a lot of the easy ones off the list in Williamsburg. With the grocery store was a big one, and some of the restaurants we have, and the personal services, and so we do have a really good mix. But now we're finding that we have, I'll call them intensification opportunities on our commercial lands. We do have commercial projects in the pipeline. I really hope that we're building 2 new commercial buildings in Williamsburg this year, which we already have approvals for. Construction cost is a real, I'll say, enemy these days to making those projects work. But yes, we do have more commercial lands in Williamsburg, which we hope to develop. We hope to intensify the parts which are proving most difficult to develop. And we also own lands down the Fisher-Hallman corridor, and are working through an application with staff right now on about 90,000 square feet of commercial space at Fisher-Hallman and Huron, including a new grocery store.
Yeah, great. I asked that because you have everything here. When you talked about services, you do. I'm out there utilizing a lot of your services, and I don't live in this ward, but I really like this model of building a community. It's like that 15-minute community that I sometimes refer to on planning developments, and I'd like to really see more of this in the city. So congratulations. This is
Absolutely. When you're developing in the greenfield, there's the concept of a complete community, and there are things which are, I'll say, fundamental building blocks to a community. Things like access to a grocery store and transit and schools and green space are some of those building blocks.
Right.
And we are very lucky to be in Williamsburg, where we have kind of set the groundwork for hopefully some very successful projects as we finish up.
Thanks.
That's all questions of the committee. I have a couple. Alex, if ever you want to look at an example of the direction that we're heading towards our planning policies and for 15-minute cities, right? I would say this is probably a 5-minute city where you can really walk out and access all the services, like Councillor Michaud has said, that everything is there. And so with that, my question is, why the conservatism with the height? Because you are looking at an OP change, so you could have the opportunity to perhaps envision something a little bit more denser. And I ask this, and I'm going to continue to ask this, because again, as a commitment by this council has made a pledge that we have to ensure development of 30,000 units over the next 10 years. So every bit of additional increased development is going to help meet our goal. So why this low and why this dense?
So I'll give you a bit of insight. We had a marathon planning session at our offices a little over a year ago where we looked at probably 12 different possible development scenarios for this piece of property. So we knew what we had to work with because our new office building was actually approved in 2019. We're undergoing what's essentially a change of use application right now to formalize that building as 100% office rather than having a mixed tenant commercial ground floor. So we always knew the amount of land that we had to work with, and we were trying to figure out what is the best way to make use of that land from a community building perspective, but also from an urban design perspective, and fulfilling the vision that was laid out 20, 30 years ago for Main Street as sort of a look back or a historic version of what a commercial Main Street looked like, and how those formed such a central component of small towns in Ontario. So there's always been, I guess, a little bit of a concern of overshadowing Main Street or dominating Main Street. We're very happy with the way this building has kind of fleshed out through the design phases. To have so many front doors on Main Street and addressing the park is a big win. So that the scale of development, it was kind of not a constraint, but something that we kind of kept in mind, trying to keep that vision in full focus and make sure we didn't stray too far from it. We also have the knowledge that we have lands on the north side of Cotton Grass Street, which currently have zoning which permits 30 meters in height, which was secured through the subdivision approvals in the early 2000s. So we're working with an architect now, looking at development scenarios there, and maybe there's an opportunity to beef up the density closer towards Fisher-Hallman and not so much internal, closer to what we'll call the broader Williamsburg neighborhood. Put something out on Fisher-Hallman with access to transit and the commercial amenities. But we're just getting started with the rental residential, and I hope to be in front of you many times over asking for increased density, and hopefully you will give it right back.
Well, we got to commit to that 30,000, so thank you for that answer.
Absolutely.
I hear you. I'm glad that you guys like where you've landed, but again, you'll have to make up that shortfall somewhere else, though.
Got it.
All right, with that, that's all the questions from the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions of staff? No? Okay. I have a quick question. Trying to keep it quick, though. Through the site plan process, when you see development like this, where especially it's more for, mid-tier rental, 2 to 3 bedroom, but also making sure that there's not an over requirement of parking spots. Are we necessitating like pickup spots for ride, hailing apps that, of course, going to be a part of our everyday life in the coming years?
So, through you, Mr. Chair, this development proposal fronts onto the private Main Street, and so there are 3 lay-by spaces that are new parallel parking spaces that are being added, so there will be an access easement over that private Main Street, and so those will function as some short-term parking that's available for drop-offs, for pickups, for delivery vehicles, that sort of thing. Within the site itself, they did request, the applicant is proposing a reduction in parking over the 85-1 parking requirement. So there's slightly less parking than that bylaw requires, but it's still in keeping with where we're headed with the new zoning bylaw. So I don't think there's an oversupply of parking. It's a reasonable amount of visitor parking as well, and there are some short-term spaces provided.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So can I get a mover for the item? I'll go to, Councilor Ordini, it's in his word, so it's been moved. Any comments? I'll just quickly make mine. It's a good development. I think it fits perfectly in this neighborhood, and this is more towards staff, I think, more than anything else. We have to really work with the developers to see where, if there is an opportunity to have increased density, we should give them kind of a better perspective of better utilization As I said to the delegate, again, we have a very tall order of a commitment for 30,000 units, and we got to make it wherever possible. Like some ask, whenever an application comes forward, can there be affordable housing? Can there be sustainable goals? What I will continue to ask is, can it be denser and can we, require lesser parking requirements? Because we have to start thinking out of the, very old adage scope of vehicular, each personal ownership of a car, and rather kind of the new technologies that will be available for all of us. So with that, all those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Okay, moving on to item number 2, where I promise to talk less, for those that are snickering. And that is, and that's for 7 Morrison Road, for the zoning bylaw amendment application. And Mr. Bateman, you're presenting first. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, Chair, committee members, staff, and residents of Kitchener. My name is Brian Bateman, and I'm very pleased to forward a staff report for committee's consideration, recommending approval of an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, that would allow for the development of 32 stacked townhouse units and 39 parking spaces at 7 Morrison Road. I know I always say this, but site context is always very critical when we're evaluating our planning applications, and in this case here, it's no different. The subject property is outlined in red. It's 0.35 hectares in area. It has 38 meters of frontage onto Morrison Road. It fronts onto Morrison Road, it sides onto the CP Railway, and backs onto Freeport Hospital. Surrounding land use is characterized as low-rise residential. As you can see, there are townhomes across the street on the other side at 24 Morrison. And there are also single detached dwellings to the north and along Manor Drive. And there's also institutional with the Freeport Hospital. Conceptual site plan. So it's this plan shows 2 blocks of stacked townhouses for a total of 32 units and 39 parking spaces. The subject property is quite sloped, and that's the high part is the northern property boundary, and it drops as you move down towards the CP Railway lands. And because of this slope, an OPA and ZBA is required, and I will discuss this in more detail in the later slides. Proposed renderings, the top view is the front, the bottom view is the back of the townhomes. I won't get into too much details on the renderings. Ms. Viconde here from MHBC will discuss this in detail, but really what I want to draw your attention to is the top view. And if you look at the lower left-hand side, you will notice the slope of the property. And if you look at the bottom view, you'll see it's 3 stories at the back, and at the top view, it's 4 stories at the front. And that slope really exposes more floor area, building floor area, which increases the floor space ratio of the property, and hence the need for an official plan amendment. And here's the proposed land use. They're not really changing the land use designation itself. It's low-rise residential. It will remain low-rise residential, but they're asking for a specific policy area, and that's to increase the floor space ratio to 0.9. The max is 0.6 in the low-rise category. You can go to 0.75 through minor variance, but above that, you need an official plan amendment. And really, as I've mentioned, that increase in floor space is reflective of just more building floor area due to the slope of the lands and the way we calculate floor space ratio. So to me, it's more of a technical approval. The zoning, you can see Area 1, it's denoting the subject area. It is to remain Res 5, so the Res 5 category allows for multiple dwellings already. And just for the committee's information, that encompasses that broader triangular piece of land around it, and it's been zoned for multiple dwellings since 1994. And it just goes to show you sometimes how long it takes for some of these lands to actually be developed. It takes a while. So the Res 5 zoning already allows for multiple dwellings, i.e. stacked townhomes, up to 3 stories in height and a floor space ratio of 0.6. So the zoning is really, it is to allow a special regulation on the property to recognize that increase in floor space ratio, as well as a decreased setback. And there's enhanced northern side yard setback. And there's also an increase in height, again, due to the slope of the property. Opportunity. The creation of 2 stacked townhouse dwelling buildings. It will add 32 rental units to the city's housing inventory. It will contribute to the diversity of housing within the Grand River neighborhood. And design is compatible with the surrounding built form and area. And lastly, highlights and conclusions. Is recommending approval of the application is to permit a floor space ratio of 0.9, permit a rear yard setback of 6. And just on that note, that has actually been increased through our evaluation of the application. It was less than that. There's an enhanced side yard setback as well, and then also to permit a maximum building height of 13.5 meters from the lowest grade. So in my opinion, the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment demonstrates good planning principles and is consistent with provincial, regional, and city planning policies. Thank you very much, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We'll come back to questions of staff afterwards, so if anyone that's keyed in for questions of staff, just try to key back in. I'll try to remember the order. And we'll go to the delegation. That's Luisa Vicando. Luisa, welcome, and again, you have 5 minutes to make your delegation.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Chair Singh, Mayor Urbanovich, and members of council. It's the first time I'm meeting all of you for the first time, I think. So happy to speak to this this wonderful project here on behalf of our client, Klondike Homes. Thank you, Mr. Bateman, for an excellent presentation and for working with us through this process. I think we've come to a wonderful concept at the end of the day here that has much improved from the initial concept that we brought forth. So as Brian has also said, context is everything. So here's another variation of a context plan. So as you can see in the Grand River neighborhood, site is there denoted in red, circle in red. The circles around generally indicate a 5 and 10 meter walking distance, so the smaller being 5 minutes, the larger being 10 minutes of walking. So generally you can see that there are a number of amenities, transit within the immediate area, as well as the Freeport Hospital to the rear. Just a general concept plan. So as you can see, it proposes 2 stacked townhouse buildings, surface parking area. There are visitor parking spaces, barrier-free, and a common amenity area to be used by the future residents. I'll just quickly run through some of the proposed highlights of this development. So as previously noted, 32 stacked townhouse dwellings, 16 in each building, vehicular and pedestrian access by the private road to Morrison, shared common outdoor amenity area, a total of 39 off-street parking spaces. Secure bicycle parking spaces will be provided and detailed through the site plan process. A 1.8 meter high fence along the north and east property lines to act as a buffer from those existing surrounding uses, and a 2.4 meter high fence along the southern property line to provide additional buffering from the rail line. A retaining wall is also proposed along the majority of the eastern and southern property lines to preserve existing vegetation and site grading for this property. Here we have some conceptual architectural renderings, generally reflective of the concept plan itself. So as you can see, articulation, variety in building materials, As noted, this is conceptual and is subject to change through the detailed site plan process. In addition, the rear facade, conceptual renderings as well. I think Brian has already touched on this, but as you can see, the rear facade shows as 3 floors, 3 stories, whereas the front facade shows as 4, and that is due to that grading change and the reason why we are requesting a official plan and zoning amendment for the FSR to address that grading on site. So that sums up the presentation itself, but I'm available to take any questions should there be any from council.
Great, thank you. There's quite a few. Councillor Ioannidis? Questions of staff?
Sure.
Okay. Councillor Clancy?
Yeah, I guess the only, it's beautiful and it's in a nice area, it fits well with the surrounding buildings. The only thought I had was, would it be possible to move the building a little forward? I know that at the back, it's kind of like a wooded lot, and it sounded like there's quite a number of mature trees that are going to be lost, and we have a tree canopy target as a city, and so just wondering if there's any way, like I know it's not convenient, air quotes, is it possible to make a better effort to preserve some of that shade for cooling and green space?
Right. Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It actually has been increased a little bit. So originally the setback for along that northern property line was 4.5 meters, give or take. It has been expanded a little bit by shifting the buildings down and reducing the width of the right-of-way there for the road, with staff approval, of course. So it has been improved a little bit, and that is in an attempt to increase that buffer to preserve those trees as much as possible.
Okay, so the trees that are being lost in the report, that's already after we...
So there might be some changes.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
No,
Yeah.
that's just an appeal. As a tree hugger, thanks.
All right. Mayor Benedict?
Thanks. Just great design. Just one quick question. With the train tracks there, is there some work that you're going to do to mitigate noise and vibration as a result of the trains?
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. Rail and noise and vibration study has been completed. It has been reviewed by the region as well. That is, I believe, a holding condition that be satisfactory to the region. It would include such things as noise warning clauses and whatnot for future tenants or owners.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair Singh. This does look great. Just wondering, do you know the breakdown of bedroom units? Are these going to be 2, 3 bedroom? Is there a mix?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that's still being determined at this time by the developer Klondike Homes.
Okay, great. And as far as the frontage on Morrison Road, is your client going to be providing a sidewalk on the front of the property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that's achieved through the city's policies through the site plan process. Perhaps
Okay.
Mr. Bateman can clarify on that.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Jamil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's the yellow house that's being taken down, right? That's 7 Morrison Road, yeah?
I believe both would have to be taken down in order to accommodate
There's
this.
2 houses on that. Sorry, I didn't see that. And with Councillor Snyder's question about sidewalks, it does say in the report that there will be sidewalks. Now, will that just be on one side or both sides of the road? I know it's kind of the other side's really empty space, right?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I believe that the other side of the road is already being addressed through the other development. Perhaps Brian can correct me if I'm wrong when it's his turn, but yeah, that is definitely the intent would be to achieve that sidewalk, at least along that frontage, yeah.
Okay, and last question, I may have stepped out during this. For every tree that's being removed, is there a plan for introducing more trees on the property or somewhere else in lieu of the trees being removed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's certainly, I would think that's the intent. And if not, that there are policies through the city's tree canopy and whatnot. Perhaps Brian can also clarify on that one as well. But yes, where possible, they are being preserved. If not, maybe transplanted if possible. But yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions for you. Thank you very much for coming forward. And now if committee members want to key in for questions of staff, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. On the topic of sidewalks, I know with the development across the street, 624 Morrison Road, an addition of a sidewalk that would link both to King Street and to the rest of sidewalks on Morrison Road has been an issue. And I know we've had talks, and I think, the process would be for the rest of the development to take place on that section of Morrison Road and then be looking at adding the sidewalk at that time. Can you comment on that? Will we eventually see a sidewalk that would connect right to King Street all the way up to the rest of the sidewalk on Morrison Road at some point in time?
Through the chair, absolutely, Councillor Schneider, that is the plan. Whether or not we can achieve sidewalks on both sides or just one side, that's up for determination right now. I know with the 24 Morrison Road side, there are a number of sort of technical challenges in order to get a sidewalk through. But with the side that we're dealing with, the 7 Morrison Road and the adjoining 3 properties that run up to Freeport Hospital, where the sidewalk ends right now, the intent there is with this development, getting the sidewalk through construction, and then as each successive phase of those lands are brought on, and we do anticipate that will happen sooner rather than later, we'll get sidewalks with them so that it will ultimately join up. So at least for sure on the one side.
Okay, thanks very much. I think this is a great development, a great addition of much-needed housing, and a great place. So at the appropriate time, I'm happy to move this recommendation.
Well, we're there, so moved by Councillor Schneider. Any comments? I see none. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. And that it is for us for tonight. Thank you.